Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have you. Today, we're going to talk about getting started with Newsela. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dana Rubenstein, who's going to introduce our special guest and start talking about Newsela.
Good morning, everyone. We are so excited that you're joining us this morning to learn more about Newsela. We have some very exciting news because Newsela has opened up their platform for all of our students and teachers while we are working virtually on instruction. So this is terrific. Previously to this, if you're a Trailblazer, you already had an account. Trailblazers in grades 4 through 12 will continue to have accounts after the virtual learning has ended. There's one more year of that, but for everyone else, we have Newsela Pro while we are virtually teaching. So we have a special guest this morning from Newsela, and I'm going to let Ellen go ahead and introduce herself real quick.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ellen, and I work at Newsela. So I've worked with Palm Beach for many years, been down there a couple of times, although I'm based out of New York. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm going to be taking you through the basics of Newsela from our perspective. So I'll take you through the site, show you what you're able to do, as well as many of the features you'll be able to take advantage of after today.
Thank you, Ellen. Just some best practices for our webinar. You'll notice there's a chat window on the right side of your screen. This is where if you have any questions, please go ahead and type your questions in the chat, and we have some team members that are going to be helping to answer those questions. And then we'll have some opportunities throughout the webinar to have some questions posted from John as well. So to get started, let's talk a little bit about what Newsela can do. Newsela is an online platform of nonfiction articles. All of the articles are from reliable sources such as the New York Times, National Geographic, USA Today, Scientific America, and many others. Every day, Newsela publishes 10 new nonfiction articles, and one of them is always in Spanish. They also have a large library of articles that can be in dual language for English or Spanish, which is fabulous. Newsela articles are adaptive to a student's reading level, and Ellen's going to show you how that occurs in the background. There are 5 different Lexile levels that can be changed or locked depending on what the teacher's needs are. And what's wonderful is that as the teacher, you can search by subject, topic, or standard. And once you find an article that you like, you can then assign it directly through Newsela or through Google Classroom, which we're going to show you how to do today. And most of the articles come with a 4-question quiz along with a writing prompt. There's also some annotations that can be added, and the writing prompts can be edited to align to your standards. So with that, it's very important as teachers in Palm Beach County, when you access Newsela, you need to go through the portal. So I'm just going to show you real quick what that looks like. Here we are in the portal. If you type in here, Newsela, you'll see the tile, and when you click on that, it will go ahead and load. Teachers and students must go through the portal in order to access Newsela. And Ellen, now that we're here, I'm going to pass it over to you to teach everyone how we can use Newsela for virtual learning.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to share my screen right here. And then I'll be able to take over. So I'm so excited to be able to chat with you today. As a former teacher, I'm always super excited to be able to interface with teachers. And particularly during this time, we hope Newsela can be really helpful to you all in the context of distance learning. So this will be the products I'm about to show you: Newsela ELA, Newsela Social Studies, Newsela Science, and the Newsela SEL collections will be free through the end of the school year. In hopes to be able to help you deal with the distance learning crisis that we're facing right now a little bit more easily. So I wanted to piggyback off of what Dana just showed you, first of all, to be able to tell you how you can sync your classes with Clever now that you've already set up through the portal. So to assign articles to students, you will have to set up your classes. That's one of the benefits of using the online platform in your work on a regular basis. And when you're using Newsela through a distance learning context, it's going to be necessary in order to be able to share individual articles with students. So what you're going to want to do is when you are in your account, you've logged in through the portal the way Dana showed you. If you float over your name and you go down to the settings page, it's going to take you to a setup that looks like this. And there's a tab that is called Classes. For you all, you will see a button in the bottom right-hand corner that says Sync with Clever. Clever is the platform that allows the portal to launch all of your Newsela and all your other education apps in one place. So this is where you'll want to go to import your classes, your rosters directly into Newsela. So if you just click this button, Sync with Clever, it'll pull up this modal, which lists all of your classes, and you'll be able to click into them in order to select the ones you want to import. Then you can click Sync Selected Classes, and you'll see that they're now right in the platform. They're listed right here. You'll see this is synced from Clever, but anything that you have already listed as a class you teach can just be pulled directly into the Newsela roster, so you can start assigning your articles immediately. I also wanted to mention that sometimes these class names by convention have kind of a crazy setup. So if you want to rename them, you can go to this screen and click Edit, this little pencil icon next to the class, and you'll be able to adjust the name of the class to make it something a little bit simpler, something like Period 1 or English, whatever you would like to make it make more sense to you. So wanted to start with that in terms of a setup thing. And now we'll jump into the actual way of using the platform. If you have any further questions, feel free to type them into the chat box. And as we go on, I'll also try and show you all the different resources we have available to you that you can find in our Educator Center if you look in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about how Newsela works in the first place. Dana already gave a great overview, but I wanted to be able to share a little bit specifically on the adaptive piece that she touched on. So every Newsela article that you click into, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, has these 5 different levels that are available to you. The max level is always going to be the original article as it appeared in our source. Everything comes from high quality sources. This one comes from the Washington Post, for example. And when you look at it at the max level, you are seeing it as it was published in the Washington Post. So for example, this one was originally written by Marissa Iati, and we see it as she wrote it at the max level. This is a 12th grade level of the text. Students will not see this number, but you can see it as a teacher. There are then 4 other levels that you can use on the article. And when you change the level of the text that you see here, you'll notice lots of things about the text that you see within the main body change. Things like the vocabulary, the sentence complexity, the text structure will shift to be more appropriate for the grade level that you're looking at right here. So it's a really beautiful and adaptive and inclusive resource that you can use with your students because all of you can talk about the same topic. It's just being formatted in a way that's going to be more or less accessible, more challenging or less challenging for students of different proficiencies. You'll also notice there's an activities tab on the right-hand side. And as Dana mentioned, the articles have quizzes that come along with them. These are reading skills focused quizzes. There are 4 question formative assessments. And for students, they won't see the correct answer. We see that because we're in a teacher account right now. But this allows the student to get a check on their comprehension for the article. The quizzes are different at different levels of the text. And it also allows Newsela to learn about the student's comprehension as well. So what actually happens is when students start taking quizzes with Newsela for the very first time, they will see the articles delivered to them at grade level. So if they're a 6th grade student, they're going to see the 6th grade level of the text. But as they start taking quizzes on the articles, The platform starts to learn from this information, and it'll start delivering them articles by default at the level that is best for students, each one individually. So if you've got a 6th grade class and you have student A who's really crushing every 6th grade quiz, they're just consistently getting 100s, they might start to see more advanced levels. They might see a 7th grade version of the text or an 8th grade version. If you've got a student B who's taking quizzes at the 6th grade level, really struggling, they might start to see the 5th grade version of the text or the 4th grade version. It'll calibrate and adapt naturally depending on how many quizzes the students take. And as a result, it makes differentiation automatic in that respect. So you don't even have to worry about that particular piece, which now that we're working with distance learning and there's so many unknowns and we're going into so much new territory, is a really nice thing to be able to just take off your plate so you can focus on all the other aspects of your teaching that you have to attend to in this moment in time, as always. So that's kind of the overview of what Newsela is and what it does. So making sure that you put your questions in the chat. I see one that says, when you change Lexile, does grade level change on the article? Yes. So if you shift this, you'll notice the text level down here does change. Depending on what you're looking at. So when I go to 1060, I see that it says 7th grade. When I go to 1240, I see that it says 9th grade. And so that will all be different. It'll just reflect what's in the Lexile right there. But by the way, students don't see that. So they'll never see the corresponding text level, just because we don't want anybody to put that as something that would be a barrier to them to looking at the correct level. We don't want anyone to be embarrassed or ashamed of not reading at grade level. So they just see a blank space underneath recommended for. They don't see the grade level that's correlated. Okay, so now that we've covered that, keep the questions coming in. I'm going to show you how to search and also how to navigate through our subject area products, which you now have free access to, which is pretty exciting. So the subject area products you'll see up here. And just warning, if you have a smaller browser or like your screen is a little bit shrunken, you'll see these as listed as subjects, and there'll be a drop-down menu that says ELA, Science, and so to a whole new level. So even if you have been using Newsela in the past, this really allows you to use it on another level. So each of the subject area products is set up such that we highlight the latest news in the particular relevant subject area on the very main window. So you'll see it load on this page. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see we've developed collections that align to several different ways of teaching or curricula within each content area. And there's also specific articles that are relevant to the different subject areas too. So here we've got social studies today, and you see the latest social studies news on the front page, and then you see the different collections that are available to you on the left-hand side as well. So we highlight things in these content rows within each of these subject areas that are going to be seasonal and relevant. So like right now, no surprise, we've highlighted our articles about coronavirus. As we go down, we're highlighting things about distance learning for Women's History Month, which just ended because it was in March. We've got articles about pandemics, primary source articles. So you'll see the news for the subject area in the front window. That's the same in Science and ELA. You're going to see the latest things highlighted in this main window. Then on the left-hand side, you'll see everything sorted by particular collections that are particularly popular for this subject area. So within social studies, C3 is a popular curricula, and we have a collection that complements that curricula there. We've got iCivics, another popularly taught tool. We have a curricula that complements that. Common Sense, Dig That Commit, Big History Project. So we have collections that are pre-made for you that align to these. And then as you keep going, if you scroll beneath that, you see you can also search by article type. So within social studies, you can search for primary sources. You can search for famous speeches or landmark documents. Within ELA, you can search for fiction articles, which are brand new, a really exciting endeavor for Newsela since we've been so focused on nonfiction. That's really been our wheelhouse. We're excited to be able to bring in fiction articles for the first time. There's also an opinion section within ELA, which is very popular, and that can kind of be used in lots of different subject areas. And then in science, you can see different subject areas that are more specific topics. So you can search by astronomy, biology, chemistry, all of those different things, so that you can really make sure that you are finding exactly the articles that you're looking for. These articles also have specific quizzes and write prompts that are ready to go with content area knowledge. So we've always had quizzes that are relevant to the reading skills. When you look at a subject area, a science or social studies article, you'll now see an additional write prompt and quiz that is specific to the subject area too. So just wanted to highlight that as something that you get the benefit of now that you have access to the science and social studies classes. And so we'll hop into search as well, so we can talk about how you can find the articles that you're looking at. I noticed we got some questions about Google Classroom. Never fear, I'll show you how you can share your assignments to Google Classroom as well when we assign an article. So you can access search by clicking into the search bar up here, just like that. And it'll pull up this question, what do you want to teach? It often suggests searches, so we kind of curate this to be based on the things that are popularly being searched right now. But you can feel free to search for whatever topic you want. And when you're in any of the subject areas, you can search this way. When you open up search, you can navigate between these three tabs. You can focus on single articles and look at articles that these would be one article that is relevant to this topic. You can also look at text sets. Text sets are groups of articles that are based on a common topic or theme. So if you want something that has a little bit wider of a scope, or if you want to provide choice to students within a certain subset, this is a great option. You can also, and this is new with the subject area products, you can search by standards. And these will be specific to you all in Florida. So if your account is signed up in a particular state and you're connected to a school that's within a particular state, you will actually be able to search by your own specific content standards. So for science and social studies, you'll be able to continue to align to your normal curricula by searching for a standard and finding all of the articles that are relevant to that particular standard. So that's a really great way to just leverage one of the additional features of search that's so amazing with our new subject area products. If you want to search for a particular reading skill to practice, you can also do that within the subject area articles. So that's in a different place, because you could search for an article that's about the American Revolution and has that particular standard, but also has a reading skill. So if you're looking for a particular reading skill, you can find that right here in the drop down. Sometimes, depending on the size of your browser, it might be under more filters, but you can find it right here. So this is a really fantastic way of narrowing the focus of what skill you want to practice. It means that the quizzes on the article will be aligned to this particular skill, as well as the text, of course. So when you find an article you really like, you can save it by clicking on this little flag icon. You can also do that within the article itself by clicking Save underneath the title. Underneath the title, you'll see there are a couple other buttons you can use. You can present if you want this to mimic what students will see in their accounts. You can also share it out. We'll talk about this later on the assignment as well, but you can share it out to any of these platforms. If you wanted to not have this article appear, either because you're saving it for later or just because you don't want students to see it, you could hide it, and you can, of course, print the article from this space as well. So this is kind of the overview of how you can find content, search for things you're going to be looking for. Now that we've found an article that we're really excited about, we're going to go into actually assigning it. This means it will be shared with students so that they will be able to see it in their accounts. And so this is just one way of using Newsela I'll put out there. When I was in the classroom, I used this method of assigning articles a lot, but I had a colleague across the hall who preferred to just have students browse Newsela, and then she had different structures for how they would share out what they found. That's also a totally great way of using Newsela too. You don't always have to just choose the articles that you want to go out to students, but oftentimes experience a little bit better. Like I said, if you want to provide choice to students or you want to align to something that's a bit wider scale than a single article, you can do that. So let's go back to this article here. To start the process of assigning, you can click Assign in the upper right-hand corner of the article. Hopefully I'm not freezing on you too much. Sorry about that. So you can see the setup right here. Oh, Tracy had a great question. Where does it go when you hit save? If you float over your content in the upper right-hand corner and you see where it says saved, that's where you'll be able to find all the articles that you've saved. And so thank you for asking that, because that's important to know. Okay, so back to our assignment. We've clicked the assign button in the upper right-hand corner of the article. Now we're on the page where we can build the assignment itself. So you can customize a lot of things about this assignment. So first you can change the title. So I can say this is day 3 of distance learning week. Hopefully it's not much longer than that. And then in the classes section, I can select the classes I want this article to go out to in the dropdown. This is why it's important to set up your classes, because if you don't do that, you can't go through this process. You can't assign an article. If you have multiple articles that you want to share this with, you can just click them. This little check mark will appear next to them, and you'll be able to assign to multiple classes at once. So as I mentioned, by default, the articles will go out to students at the level that is best for them. It's customized, individually personalized, depending on the level that is best for them, as indicated by quiz performance. However, on this page, you have the option to adjust that level manually if you would so choose. And that's what you can do right here. So texts that are available, and you can choose one to lock at that particular level so that students will all see, everyone in your class will see this level, and they'll have to take the quiz at that level before they can see the other levels. So I could select grade 7, for instance. I click lock selection. That means that all the students in period 2, and if I had other classes, whatever levels or whatever other classes I also included, would see the article at grade 7 level. They would have to take the quiz there before they could access the other levels. So usually I recommend this if you are doing something like a whole class read aloud. So if that's something you're doing like in a video lesson context. Or if you've done, you've set up elaborate annotations at one level, we'll talk about annotations in a second, then, that might be appropriate. But in general, this is something that you can choose to use. You can choose not to use. It's up to you. It's there to put the power in your hands to assign this article the way you want it to be. By default, students can change the level of the text. That's just something to know, and that's part of why this feature exists, because they are able to look at multiple versions, and sometimes teachers are worried about that, so it's another common reason they use this feature. The other optional feature that's right here is the instructions. So I will say, if you're using something like Google Classroom, you might prefer to put the instructions in that platform. But this is just another option, another place where you can put a message that will appear on the article when students look at it. They have to click past that instruction box to be able to get to the article, and then they will live at the top of the article so they can continually refer back to it. So you can put anything you want in here. You can put a positive message. Welcome back to distance learning. Or I can say our virtual classroom. Today, read this article, take the quiz, and highlight 3 points you want to bring up in our video instruction. Great. And so you can put anything you'd like there, and when it's ready, as it is right now, you can assign the article. You just do that by clicking assign in the upper right-hand corner. If you're not ready for it to go out also, you could just click save draft, and then it'll save this specific setup, and you can come back to it another time and then click assign. So I'm going to assign this to my students, and there we go. It's out now, and my students will be able to see it when they click into their accounts. This is where all you Google Classroom friends will figure out how to share your assignment to Google Classroom. So if you click on this little arrow that's right here that says share, you can select the Google Classroom option to share this article out to your students on Google Classroom as an assignment. So when you do that, it'll then take you to the Google Classroom page. And I don't actually have a Google Classroom set up on this email, but you'll be able to select the class you want it to go out to, and from there, it's just a normal Google Classroom assign. It shares as a link, so that's what it will look like when you see it on the platform. But just so you know, if you want your article assignment to appear on Google Classroom, you have to take that step. Otherwise, you won't see this assignment appear on Google Classroom. So it's important to do that with anything that you assign. Okay, yes, so that's an important thing to note. When you click assign within the Newsela platform, it assigns it to Newsela. To share it out to Google Classroom, you have to click into that. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, so once you've done that, I wanted to highlight one other thing because I saw this was mentioned in chat. So when you click into an article, there are lots of different ways that you can make it extra exciting for students. So one of these is, as Dana mentioned, you can customize the write prompt. So if you go into the activities tab right here and you click into write, you'll see there's an existing write prompt that's always provided. And that's going to be there on every single article. They're solid write prompts. So if you want to use them, you don't even have to look at them. You can just are always available to students to do, even if they are looking at the article independently. When you click edit on a write prompt, you'll see that the text box then changes and you can type something into this box. So if you want to say something like, how does this connect to our discussion of women's history, I can't type, history month, use 2 details from this text and 2 details from the previous texts we looked at. When I click save, this is now how all my students are going to see the write prompt when they click into it. They'll just be able to see it same as I've typed it right here. And the write prompt can be used for a lot of things. I think most people think of it in a short response context, and it's certainly great for that. But it's really a free response space. So it's long enough that if you wanted to have students write a full essay in here, they could. But I've also really loved seeing teachers use this for things like activators or for sharing prior knowledge before they get into the article. It's really just a space where you have the opportunity to see what students have written. So don't feel like you have to use it for short response. You can be creative with it. Have them put different things in here. I've seen it used in an SEL context that's really cool. So if you just want to have students share out the response to the articles, that can be a really fun thing too, especially during this time when we kind of want to be aware of how everyone's doing in the midst of this healthcare crisis. Okay, so one other thing that's really one of my favorite features, I love talking about annotations, is that you can highlight different things within the text. And very simple to do. You can try this out right now on any article you're on. You just click and drag over the section of the text as though you're going to copy and paste it. And when you release the mouse, you'll see this text box pop up right here. You've got 4 colors you can choose from. So you can pick whatever one's your favorite, and then you can write something in this space. So I'm seeing someone comment stop and jot. Exactly. So students can do this too. So as a teacher, I can ask a question to students and they'll see it as a comment. Students can do this independently, or they can respond to a comment that I've written. So I could start off by saying something like, why did the author choose to open the article this way? Right? So I can click share, and then that can be a text are thinking about when they look at this article. And so for them, when they look at it, they'll see this comment, and instead of unshare, it'll say reply for them. And they can respond to me in a threaded conversation with an answer to this question. So it's a fabulous way to provide another dimension to the questions that you're asking. You can ask an overall question in the instructions on the assignment. and then you can get even more specific here. And that's not all you can do. You can be super creative with this. I see teachers using the different colors to mean different things. So as I think Dana mentioned this in chat, you can highlight like the main idea in red and something you don't know in yellow. And that way you can always have kind of some guidelines for how students are going to engage with the text. You can use this to scaffold. So if you want to say something like, this is a bad example, but if you wanted to define the word playwright, you could say, this is the author of a play. That's obviously kind of an obvious word to define, but you get the idea. You can use it to scaffold. You can use it even just to find a few places where you want students to do something. So one of the things I've tried is at the end of every section of the text, having students pause and summarize, just as a reminder to slow down a little bit. That can go a long way too. So this is just one of my favorite features. And again, students can do the same thing. So they can respond to your comments. They can also make them independently. So you don't always have to embed your questions. You can also just put the onus on them and have them look for different things. When they make comments, only you can see them. That's an important thing to note because otherwise it would become kind of like a chat you have to moderate, but you don't have to worry about that. It kind of creates this channel between you and the student. That's a really cool way to be able to interact with them. And in a distance learning context, I think it's particularly important to bring this up. Okay, so keeping an eye on chat, keep those questions coming in. I'm happy to answer any of them. I wanted to go to the binder right now so I can show you where you're going to see all of the students' work and also where you're going to be able to see all the results of everything they've worked on. So if you float over binder in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the options that you can look at. The two main tabs I would emphasize in the binder are the assignments tab and the reading summary tab. They're kind of the inverse of one another. The assignments tab is where you're going to see all the data broken down by assignment, unsurprisingly. So if you want to see how students have done on every single article, you can look here. The reading summary tab is kind of the inverse of this in that you're looking at the data broken down by student. So you are seeing for every student, how have they done across all of Newsela, and what has been the summary of their cumulative experience on Newsela. This is where you can see their reading levels and how they've done overall. And so you will be able to we'll take a look at both of these to see what you can do there. So we got a question, when you see their responses, does it show student names for teachers? I think that'll become clear when we look at this, but let me know if not. Yes, you can see the student names in their responses. So we're going into the binder for assignments tab first. And that's where we're going to be able to take a look at all the assignments students have done overall. And so we can look at the assignments we've given and we can decide which one we want to look at. Let's take a look at this one just because this looks cool. It's got a Star Wars picture. Productive disagreement practices. So first of all, I can review how I set up the assignment. And then underneath that, we can see how students have started to complete this. So I can see, all right, 12 of my students have viewed this article. They've spent a median time of 8 minutes on it, median level of 5. And then as I look below, I can see specific information for each of my students. I can see the date on which they read this article, the time they spent reading the article. That's a really cool one to be able to see. And then you can also see the different levels at which they read the article. If any student read at more than one level, their name will have 2 entries. So if Aaron read at the 3rd grade level and also the 5th grade level, we would see 2 entries for Aaron. Then you can see the score they got on the quiz. You can even see at a glance how they performed and what questions they got right versus what they got wrong. So Michael, for instance, first 2 questions he got wrong, that's why they're in red. Second 2 questions he got right. You can access the right prompt grading and the number of annotations they have right here as well too. But one other way you can do it is by clicking into the student's name. So I'm going to go into Tanner. When you click into one of the students' names, you're taken to the review mode. And this is where you can actually see students' work. So to see students' work, you click into the Assignments tab, you select an assignment, and then you just click into a student's name and you'll be brought there. You can still navigate between students by clicking through their names right here. So if I wanted to switch from Tanner to Aaron, very simple to do. I can just click into her name and now I'm looking at Aaron. If I wanted to switch to Nicole, I can just click into her name. So what I see here is all of Nicole's work. As I go through the article, I'm seeing the annotations that she made. They're specific to her. If I click into another student, I'll see that student's annotations, right? Now this is a demo account, so it just says annotation, which is kind of boring, but you can reply to the student right here. So I can click reply to David and I can say something like, what an amazing point. Can you expand a little bit more to connect strongly to the main idea? Great. So I can provide feedback. I can answer questions in response to whatever he would say. This now, if I respond to David, will just be shown to him. It's not going to be shown to the entire class. It's just going to go out to that single student. So we can see their annotations in the main window. Then on the right-hand side, we can see other things about the article that they've completed. So I could already see in the previous window how they did on the quiz, but if I want to see the quiz results in context, so not just did they get the answer right or wrong, but specifically which questions did they get right versus which questions did they get wrong, I can click into this and I'll see the correct answer versus the incorrect answer they chose. The student got 100, so that's not the case. I can also see their response to the right prompt. So as I mentioned, you can customize the right prompt and it'll say whatever you wrote right here if you change that. Again, it's a demo, so it just says response, but this is where you see whatever the student wrote. You can then choose a score that you want to give to the student. So I can say, let's give him a 3, and I can leave comments here. So I can say, great job, but you still need one more piece of evidence from the text. Then I can decide either I can share that score and it goes into the gradebook, it's signed, sealed, delivered, or I can return for revision, meaning that the student will get another opportunity to revise their response. And so they could make changes, whether that's a normal part of my writing process or whether I just want to give the student a second chance. So let's give David a second chance. We'll return it for revision. You can see that comment is displayed there. Now, what I love as a former writing teacher is that when he does his second attempt, we'll see that one right beneath the first one and my feedback. So you get everything in one screen. Them. I'm going to quickly show you what it looks like in the reading summary tab. So this one, by the way, again, is where we're showing, oh, sorry about the freezing. This is where we're showing, okay, we're back, looks good. So this is where we're showing in the reading summary tab, all of the information broken down by student itself. So we can see we've got all the students' names right here. You will see their reading levels appear in this column. So this is the Newsela reading level that's been calculated according to our algorithm based on their past quiz performance. So you can see, and you can feel free to sort these however you like. I always like to look at it alphabetically, but you can see the student's name corresponding to their grade level, and then you can see this, according to this plus minus button right here, the confidence with which we're selecting and how recent that data is. We just want to give you that number just to be transparent about what we know and what we don't know. When your students take in one quiz and there are 4 data points, would be pretty presumptuous for us to say we know what grade level they're reading on. So that's why that number is there, just to give you an idea of with what certainty we can suggest these numbers. These ones are pretty good. Like, these students have taken enough quizzes that this is a pretty solid, once it gets into the decimals, it's a pretty solid number. But you can see, like, Erin, she's reading at a low 4th grade level, while Robin is like a mid 7th grade level, and Rebecca's just approaching an 8th grade level. So you can see all of that. You can see how many articles they viewed, their average time in article. And if you want more details about a certain student, you can click into their name. And so when you click into their name, you'll see a graph that plots all the quizzes they've taken on the x-axis about time, and on the y-axis about grade level of the article. So every dot represents a quiz. When you float over the dot, you can see more information about that quiz. So this was the primary sources article. They read it on March 2nd. They scored 100% on the quiz at level 5. So you can see all of that. This line shows you how their reading level has progressed over time. Beneath this, you will see a breakdown of how they've performed in each individual class. So this student only has one class, but you can see all of the activity for articles that have been assigned for that class. The cool thing about this, and unfortunately I don't see this in this demo account, but if you have a colleague that is using Newsela with the same student, you'll be able to see the student's activity in that colleague's class. So you can see what they're reading in someone else's class. You can see how they're doing. It's just a great thing to be able to have access to, so you get a little bit more information. You can also see if they've done independent reading on their own. So they've just been browsing for articles, and they've been looking at anything they want. There'll be a category here that's called independent reading, and you'll be able to see all of the articles that they've chosen on their own and how they've performed on that as well. So you can still keep track of that. Kind of cool to be able to see what students are deciding to read on their own, and also pretty cool to be able to respond to them. So if you want to give them an option, like I mentioned my colleague would do, where they find their own articles, you'll still be able to review their work through that space. I saw a question that said, how is a student made aware to make revisions, see teacher comments? They don't get a notification within Newsela at this current time. We've asked about that many times, and so we'll see if that becomes a feature later on. But for right now, the way it works is that the teacher would have to indicate the student needs to go back and look at the revision. Okay. So that's everything that I wanted to make sure we covered. We got in annotations, we talked about the binder, we talked about assigning to Google Classroom, we talked about searching, our new subject area products, how to look for standards. So we really got a lot in the time that we had. We do have a couple minutes left, so if you have lingering questions that you've been holding on to, I'd love to be able to answer them now. Really want to make sure however we can help and support during this time, and always, that we're able to make this as easy on you as possible. So feel free to ask anything that might still be on your mind.
Yeah, so if there are any questions that people have in the chat, we see a lot of people are watching anonymously, so they're not able to ask questions, we think. So feel free to ask those. While we're doing that, Dana has her screen up. So Dana, do you want to share some things while we're waiting?
Sure, thank you. And Ellen, thank you so much for that very deep and fast overview of Newsela. I know teachers are really appreciative of all of your knowledge. That was terrific.
Great.
So for those of you watching, we have some additional topics coming up for our webinars that I think you're going to be really interested in. We have project-based learning, Adobe Spark. HyperDocs is going to be this afternoon at 2:30 with a special guest, Tanya Avrith, who is with Adobe. We're also going to be doing some webinars to focus on STEAM and Flipgrid, BrainPop, and Discovery Education. So I'm just going to open up our edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org website real quick to show you how you can access those trainings. Here we are on the home page. And as we scroll down, there's a calendar. So if you would like to see future topics and join us, all you need to do is go to the appropriate date and topic that you're interested in. Here's the one you're in right now for Newsela. When you click on it, it's going to give you some information, and then there's going to be where you can click to join the live stream. So we really encourage you to keep checking this. We have new topics being added constantly, and we hope that you join us this afternoon at 2:30 for HyperDocs. And with that, we are so thankful that you joined us. And if there's anything else, Ellen, that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. We were able to cover everything I wanted to get through. So thank you very much for this time. It was a pleasure to be here.
There are a couple of questions in the chat real quick, Dana, I'll get to. Brooke asked, will ESE teachers have access through the portal? And the answer right now is yes. While we are working remotely, Newsela has graciously opened up their entire platform to all of our teachers and all of our students. So through the time we're doing remote learning, you can click the tile in the portal and you are logged in, sync your classes, and everything is there. When we get back in the fall, we will move back to having it only for 4th through 12th grade Trailblazers, with other discussions possibly at the district office. You know, that always changes too. So the other question's about ReadWorks, and I've never heard of that one. Are you guys familiar with that at all?
I've heard of them before, although it's been years since I used them.
Okay, yeah, not too sure about that one. Not even sure if it's approved in Palm Beach, so that would be something that we would have to look into. If you want to reach out to one of us, we would appreciate that. We can do some more searching for you. But with that, I'll let Dana end it with Ellen.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope that you found this helpful, and keep in touch. Make sure you check out edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org for our future topics. And if there's anything that you need, let me just pop open our email addresses one more time, and you can certainly reach out to us. Have a terrific day.
Awesome.